Welcome to the Manuscript Academy podcast,
brought to you by
a writer
and an agent
who both believe that education is key.
The beauty is the people you meet along the way,
and that community makes all the difference.
Here at the Manuscript Academy, you can learn the skills, make the connections, and have access to experts, all from home.
I'm Julie Kingsley.
And I'm Jessica Sinsheimer.
Put down your pens, pause your word counts, and enjoy.
It is our pleasure here today at the Manuscript Academy podcast to be talking to Elizabeth Holden. We're going to be discussing a brand new book, baby. We're going to be discussing all things writing and a possible opportunity for summer of 2025.
Yay, Liz!
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get to hang out and talk.
We're really happy you're here. And I was thinking before we started recording, you are one of those people who seems like they can do anything. So not only are you a writer, you are a physics professor. Yes. And
Yes.
I mean, not many people get the writing and the physics brain. Very cool. Plus, you are in roller derby. Plus, you plan very specialized retreats. I think my favorite was the one that, is it vampires and cakes?
So those were two separate concepts, although my God, I kind of love the idea of
I know
combining.
too.
Yeah, we did a vampires trip and then we did a cakes and coffee houses trip. So, and then we're doing one called Spirits this year, which is spirits in terms of whiskey and in terms of ghosts.
Oh my gosh.
so-
How am I not doing this? How am I not going?
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for all of these things. But let's first dive into this brand new book, Mighty Millie Novak. And I'm just on your website right now. This is coming out via Flexbooks 2024. And the tagline is social anxiety, her parents' divorce, and a tumultuous friendship won't stop Millie's pursuit of what she wants and roller derby in love, but her own lies might. That is amazing. Tell us about how you started writing, Liz.
Yeah.
When did you start writing? When did you start querying? The ups and the downs? Tell us everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of ups and downs. I've been writing my whole life, but I finished my first novel and queried it a teeny bit when I was in grad school, which was, I want to say 2006, 2007, kind of right on the cusp of like some agents were still requiring paper submissions. I only sent it out a little bit. It wasn't great. It's okay that it wasn't great. And I did a lot of like big mistakes. Like I was like, it's got a werewolf in it. Is that kind of sci-fi? I don't know. Maybe it is. They're looking for sci-fi. I'll call it sci-fi, things like that, which were not good. And I was like, it's kind of like a rom-com. There was no romance in it. I don't know where I got that idea, So I was inexperienced and kind of like, oh, sure, whatever. And not surprisingly, that didn't go anywhere. And then I spent like a decade, I don't know, working, teaching, getting my life going, and also writing short stories and starting a lot of novels and not finishing them. And then in 2018, I wrote a middle grade novel that takes place in Amsterdam on a houseboat with a girl who's moved there from the US and she's solving a mystery. And I was like, this is really good. I think this is it. And so I started querying and I queried it to death. I queried it so much and I got a lot of positive responses. I got some requests for fulls and partials. I got personalized rejections, but it was just, I think I hung on for quite a while thinking, no, this is the book that I will get an agent from. And I changed a bunch of stuff and reworked it. It ended up with a new title and then I still kept querying it. And it just kind of felt like, I was almost like running out of agents, and not being very discerning either in who I was querying. Unlike before, I wasn't making the mistake of querying agents who weren't taking my genre or whatever, but I was not vetting people. I was just kind of like a name, an agent, they're new, maybe they'll like it, and just going. And I think at a certain point I needed to be like, maybe I should write something else. And I probably should have started that sooner, but it worked out. It's fine because that wasn't the book. And then I had floating around in my mind for a while that I wanted to write a YA about some girls roller derby team, like a junior team. And I kind of envisioned it as maybe like from multiple points of view of different characters on the team. And it would just be something that would sort of come to me when I was falling asleep in bed at night. And then in the summer of 2020, I was at home, not skating. I'd been playing roller derby since 2015, missed it really bad. I missed the camaraderie and I missed the physicality. And I started writing it then. And it was like one of the girls who I'd sort of imagined as one of the characters just started becoming a lot more clear to me. And I realized, oh, that's who I want to write about. And I just started going and I finished my first draft in about 2.5, 3 months, something like that. And at a time when I really missed roller derby. And so it was a nice way to write about something I miss so much and love so much. And I queried it. I don't have a lot of patience, so I queried it right away. I don't know if it was with that book or the previous one when I got to know you two, because I think it was the previous one. And I do think being a member of Manuscript Academy, taking advantage of all of your resources, I think it was the summer of 2020, or maybe it was summer 2019, where I had to do some really boring physics summer side job where I would listen to your podcast nonstop while I did this extremely boring work. And it was really nice. I feel like I learned a lot.
Forgive me, but I'm picturing you doing something like dropping a blender off a roof, calculating how long it takes, and then doing it again. What is
God,
this boring physics
that
work
would
you're
be
doing?
so much better. It's hard to remember because I've had so many boring physics projects. I think I was either writing a solutions manual or I was writing the alt text for all the images in a textbook. So I'd be writing things like a duck with a dot at the center to show its center of mass and like typing that and like
Oh
putting
my
it in the
gosh. And then
spreadsheet.
we're
And,
cackling in the background.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it was great because whatever I was doing, it was physics, but it was not taking up a lot of my brain power and it was dreadfully boring.
So you're
It
like
was,
listening to us and we're like, be descriptive. And you're like, it's a duck with a
yeah.
dot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was not the sort of writing experience that you guys were talking about in the podcast. But yeah, so then in 2020, I queried it kind of right away. I didn't spend a lot of time revising or anything. Maybe I should have. I don't know. I got an agent right away. She was my agent for 6 to 8 months. We went out on like a short submission. She subbed to a few people. Ultimately, I decided to leave her. She wasn't a good fit for me.
These things
No
happen.
hard feelings and just kind of like in the same way that you can be in a relationship with someone and you can be like, this is a perfectly good person, but I don't want them as my partner, is the same sort of thing. So I left in the summer of 2021 and started querying again. And I think I had kind of pictured that, oh, I'll just get an agent immediately. It'll be really easy. And that was not the case. I had the sense to not put all my eggs in one basket. I had already written another novel in, I guess, early 21. I wrote another novel and then I was working on another one and querying somewhat. And then I got my current agent, that sounds like when people say my current wife. No, I love my agent, Allie Helgers with Stamola. She's wonderful and is a great fit for me. And that was in February of 2022. And so I'd made a lot of edits to Mighty Millie Novak along the way. Like after I left my previous agent in 21, before I started going out on sub again, I made quite a few changes based on the initial feedback that we'd gotten from a few editors. And just thinking about it and realizing I wanted to change some things. It had originally had a lot more focus on Millie's home life and her parents divorcing. And I changed the timeline with that so that it had already happened. It was not something like a big event in the story. It was sort of background stuff that she's dealing with. And I changed some other things too. And so then we went out on sub and Allie did like multiple rounds. And I was kind of like, I don't know, what if it never sells? And she was like, no, it will. We have to find the right person. You just have to find someone who will love it the way that I love it and the way it should be loved. And, it was very positive. About this time last year, Ashton Stan at Flux Books responded to Allie's submission and said she loved it and it was really great. Ashton sent it to the editorial team and I guess it was a really quick, easy meeting and they all loved it, which is awesome. And at this point, then when I got the offer, I was incredibly sick with a respiratory thing. So Allie called me with the offer and she'd been sending me email updates. And I kind of had a feeling like, yes, this is going to happen, but I didn't know for sure. So when she called me officially, I could not speak. I literally was not physically able to make any noises because I was so sick. And so it was a really weird experience. Like I'd been planning, when this happens, we're going to get champagne, we're going to go out and celebrate. And I was like, I can't eat, I can't speak. I spent 2 weeks not sleeping in bed because I had to sit up all night and it was not a good thing. It was not COVID. It was some other respiratory thing that was worse than when I had COVID. So then Allie had to email me and we had to correspond by email. And so we decided we were going to have a meeting with Ashton and like talk things over. And we had to delay it because I still couldn't speak.
Oh, no.
And so it was a weird experience where I didn't get to quite celebrate in the way I'd always imagined, but I'll also never forget it. Yeah. And so that was about a year ago. And so, they had the plan for it to come out August of 2024. And I was like, oh my God, that's so fast. That's incredible. And you know how it is, like my friends and family not in the publishing industry were like, don't you mean slow? Isn't that incredibly slow? And I was like, no, that's really fast. So I was really happy about that.
So to recap,
yeah.
when you got your book offer, you were
Yes.
literally physically speechless.
I was speechless. Yes, in the most literal sense possible. Yeah, it was bizarre. I remember my husband got me a teeny tiny bit of champagne so I could just like sip it with a snack, and it was just so I could say that I did.
So tell us about Millie. What do you love about her? Like, why her? Why that character?
A lot of the feedback I've gotten from readers is stuff like, I was yelling at her. I wanted to shake her. Why is she so dumb? Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not a teenager anymore. And I feel like, I don't know, the insecure, sort of needy, socially awkward part of Millie is something that it does not take that much work for me to draw on. Like, it is something really pretty familiar to me. She's been homeschooled for years because she was bullied really bad in 6th grade and then got very sick with pneumonia, and so just decided I'm not going to go back. I guess that's a weird coincidence now that I say it out loud, that she was sick with a respiratory thing too.
When you got your
Oh,
book
that's kind of
offer.
weird.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, I never realized that.
Stranger than fiction.
I need to write a novel in which someone is remarkably healthy all the time, and then see if I can get a deal on that one. This is an absolutely insane thing to say, so that's why I'm saying it while being recorded, I guess. That's a normal thing to do. Sometimes I do feel like I write things in stories or novels and then they come true in the most boring ways, in tiny ways. Like I wrote a short story that had a character named Elliot who was a hippie. And then the next day I met a guy named Elliot who was a hippie at the laundromat. And just like, I don't actually believe in that, but also I kind of do. So anyway.
I think you should take notes. As a scientist, I think you should take notes.
I should be recording these things. Yeah.
Would you share your query in your first page with us?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Should I explain that I got my agent in kind of a weird way with a weird story?
Yes, you absolutely should.
Okay. So
no, tell us that story.
Yeah. So by the time my agent saw my query, she and I had already corresponded on Twitter because I accidentally went a little bit viral on book Twitter in 2022. So Millie, the character, is queer, and there's a little bit of romance between her and another girl. And I got a rejection letter from an agent that said, although he liked it, he had discovered or whatever, he must have Googled me, that I'm married to a man. And so my book just won't sell. And so I was devastated. And then I was like, I'm going to put something on Twitter. And, I'm like, I'm not sharing the guy's name, but I do want to be like, hey, this is not cool. But also, if this happens, like, this has not been my experience commonly. I don't think this is the view of most agents at all. I think this is an outlier who's a jerk. But I mentioned my queer roller derby YA novel, and it sort of took off and started doing numbers. And there was like, my stepdaughter saw reference to it in a post from someone else and was like, Liz, I guess her roommate was like, hey, I think your stepmom has gone viral. And,
oh my God.
And it was like a Thursday night that I posted it. And I had such an overwhelmingly positive response. It was interesting because I think like the discourse around writers' sexuality I see it as different than when people talk about like some rich white lady writing about Mexican immigrants or something, where it's more like I thought, didn't we already do this with Becky Albertalli, where she got sort of pushed into coming out and saying she's bi because she's writing about a gay male character, and people were saying, well, she's straight, so she shouldn't. And she's like, well, great, now I get to come out. Thanks, everybody. And that was before my incident. And so the vast majority of people were really supportive. And some people had kind of a slightly stranger take of like seeing it as, oh, you should be able to write literally whatever you want from whatever perspective you have. And I'm not saying that, necessarily. Like I said, I would not be comfortable. Like, why would I tell the story of someone look, I just keep thinking of the book American Dirt, right? Like, that's what I keep thinking of, right? Like, but that's different than talking about an author's sexuality versus her character's sexuality. And I also just think it's really crummy in like an extra way because I love my husband so much and he's so awesome. You guys know him. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And so it just feels so just much like in order to write a book with a character that likes girls, I can't be married to like my favorite person in the world. Like that's,
Well, and to force a writer to come out, not knowing if that will make them unsafe in their
Yeah.
day-to-day lives.
Yeah. It's not the business of the agent. And I know Eric Smith was one of the first people who shared it and wrote something really nice. And I don't know if that's where it exploded from. It kind of seems like maybe it did, but people were writing really wonderful things, including some agents commenting on that post and saying, hey, reach out to me. And I was like, yes, okay, I will do that. Absolutely, I will do that. And so I just was like, well, I am going to give my life to this experience for the next couple days and make sure I do not miss a single opportunity, because this was a crummy experience and I am going to absolutely take the best thing I can from it, you know? So I went from Thursday night getting that rejection, crying, and then to Sunday night getting an offer from Allie, because I had gotten things out to people extremely quickly. When I saw agents being like, oh yeah, I think I'd like to see that, I'd be like, great, it's in your inbox. I was like, I am on top of things. And I had gotten probably 10 different agents who were interested, and like
Wow.
at least one editor who was like, hey, when you've got an agent, send this over to me. And from that, I ended up getting 3 offers. It was just the biggest tonal shift from like one Thursday to the next Thursday, at which point I think I had 2 offers by the next Thursday. Like it happened really fast and it was really strange. But I also know that because I obviously, hey, like Millie, I can get insecure and in my own head, and I can be like, what if I didn't earn this? What if this is just because of the viral experience, you know? And I know when I think about it, though, I know that isn't true, because agents have to sell things to make money, right? And also because out of those 10 agents, 7 of them said, no, actually, it's not for me. You know, like they did have to read my query, they did have to read my first pages and then request more or whatever. And Allie said she read it and she said, I never read on Sundays. I try to reserve that day just for family, and I could not put it down. I knew I had to fight to get this book, you know? And so I think it happened fast because of Twitter, but in another sense, it had taken years and years for all of this to develop. It was just, there was a lightning strike and I was ready. I'm organized. I had all my queries there. I had PDFs. I kind of cleared my schedule and was like, all I'm going to do is make sure I stay on top of all these tweets and, you know, not wade into fighting or drama or anything, but just be like, yeah, this was a crummy experience, but also I think I was like 40 and I know myself, and this is not going to damage me as a person, and I'm okay. And I will encourage any other writers who are DMing me and being like, oh, this scares me, I'm just going to start querying or whatever. And I was just ready to hit it. And so I was sending stuff out as soon as it came in, as soon as anyone said the nicest thing. So I was ready.
Wow. How did you manage your multiple offers? Did you speak with each person? Did
Oh,
you let
yeah.
them all know? Walk us through that process.
Yeah. So Allie made me the offer Sunday night. I had a second offer Monday morning. And then about a week after that, I had another offer. So I had the meeting with Allie and this agent 2 on that Tuesday. And I said I wanted some time to think, because I did like them both and they both had good things about them. And I was kind of looking at like, you know, their track records, their style, their organizational skills, like just kind of holistically trying to weigh that. And then the third agent kind of came in a little bit later, kind of towards the end, because once I got the offer from Allie and emailed everyone who had it and said, hey, I got an offer, you know, can you get back to me in 2 weeks if you want to see the full, if they didn't have it, or if you want to make an offer. And so the third agent that I spoke to asked who the other agents were who had offered, and I told her Allie's name, and we'd had this lovely talk, but then she was like, oh, you should go with Allie. Allie's so great. And it was really bizarre, and it made it easier on me, though. It was great that she was just like, I know Allie, she's so lovely. The 3 of us are going to have to get a drink sometime. Like, she's a delight. Like, so it made it easier in a way. And she had also said she had a very full client list, and I was aware that I would have had a much longer wait to go on sub if I had signed with agent 3. And one of the things I thought was cool about Allie is she talked about how she does foreign rights stuff for Simola as well. And so she is able to have her full-time job be for that agency, a combination of agenting and foreign rights stuff. And so she's like, I know I'm in it for the long haul. I have this figured out. I'm not going to leave the profession. I felt very secure. And I also just felt like the way she talked about Millie and the way she talked about my book, I just felt like this is going to be a great fit. But it was hard because I loved all of them. It was, I was like fretting about it. And then I was like, how dare I fret about this? This is a wonderful problem
Can
to
I
have.
point out something? It is
Mhm.
the opposite of being picked last in gym.
Oh my God, Julie. Oh my God. Damn it. You're right.
Just saying.
I think it's absolutely one of those things where you just don't know when bad things happen, what it's going to lead to. And I'm not one of those people that thinks, oh, everything happens for a reason. It's going to actually be good, because sometimes things are really, truly shitty. But I do think this is one of those cases where it did lead somewhere good. And even when bad things happen that are actually legitimately really bad, it's not saying, oh, it happened for a reason and it's secretly good. I still think this is, things are bad, but you don't know what's going to happen or what's going to develop. There's so many different variables and so many different people and how they interact and possibilities in life that, like, it's just really hard for people to predict what's going to develop. And so being ready to take advantage of things and being prepared, like that expression about, luck favoring the well prepared or whatever it is, So I think even though it was a bad thing, it could have stopped there, and I could have cried about it that night and then gotten over it. But I was like, I think I want to tweet about this. And I did think, like, I like sales. I mean, the travel business is sales essentially. And I was like, I want to share this with people. I'm going to mention what my book's about. I did not expect to go viral, but I'm always very aware that anything I put on the internet is forever. And I'm like, I'm going to put the name of my book out there just in case, and the concept of it or whatever. And I try to be ready for good stuff.
I'm glad this happened when you were ready to send your book out. Had
Yeah.
you not been, so say you're a writer listening right now, and a couple months from now, you go viral with something and your book is not ready. I think it's perfectly acceptable to screenshot the viral tweet that the agent replied to, put that in the top of the query, and then say, hi, you replied to this a couple weeks ago. I'm now ready. Here's my manuscript. But for those of you out there, yes, be ready, as Liz said, for good things to happen.
Yeah.
And you deserve good stuff, Liz. So we're so excited for you.
Oh,
query in First Page?
Yeah, let's do
Yeah. I'm going to bring up the exact query that I wrote to Allie because it actually references the tweet. So I feel like you were just talking about putting that in there, even if it's been a while. I was like, I don't want them to have any doubt who I am. So I made sure to include that. But yeah, so I titled it Queer Roller Derby YA Query so that it would catch the eye. And then I said, hi, Allie, thanks so much for your kind message and reaching out to me on Twitter after my rejected because I'm married to a man tweet exploded. Mighty Millie Novak, my contemporary YA, combines the fierce devotion to sports in Sarah Henning's Thrill Like a Girl with the queer first love and Midwestern setting of Leah Johnson's You Should See Me in a Crown. It is complete at 69,000 words. 16-year-old Millie lives for roller derby. If she were only stronger and faster, maybe her teammates wouldn't see her as just the goofy one, the comic relief. Maybe she'd get the attention of that cute girl on the all-star team, too. At least Pumpkin, Millie's super loyal, super cool best friend and teammate, always has her back. With Pumpkin's help and a little bit of deceit, Millie makes a plan to master a challenging new derby skill and get her crush to fall for her. Instead, she has disastrous games and repeated conflict with Stork, a talented teammate whom Millie and Pumpkin despise. Worse, she begins to suspect Pumpkin may not be the supportive friend she appears to be. Navigating a complicated friendship is even tougher than growing as an athlete. Tougher than that, realizing the person she's in love with might not be her long-term crush after all. Like Millie, I'm obsessed with roller derby. I've played for Madison Roller Derby, where I go by Antimatter, since 2015. I've had short stories published in literary magazines, including Punchnul's Everyday Fiction and Stirring, and have written extensive physics textbook supplements for McGraw-Hill, Pearson, and Macmillan Publishing. I'll have things to say about this in a moment. In addition to my passions for writing and roller derby, I'm a physics professor and co-founder of a travel company. I've attached the full as a .doc file. If you prefer a different format, let me know and I'll send it right away. I look forward to hearing from you. I just want to say, rereading that now for the first time in a while, I don't think I needed to mention the short stories because I don't think those are big enough name literary journals to mention. I don't know.
But it sets a pattern. I think it's fine. I think it's a great letter.
Okay, so that's good
I
to hear.
It showed your range.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think it's worthwhile that I mentioned the physics stuff, though? I feel like
yes, because that means you can hold a job, and also you can do something like 99.9999% of people in publishing cannot.
God, that's interesting. So it's so interesting to talk that through with you all. Okay.
Oh yeah,
so,
we're pretty aware that as a group we're bad at math and science.
I know
what it is, but
no,
it's just kind of a joke. You go to lunch with an editor, and the bill comes. They're like, "Hold on, have to do math."
I will say physicists, like, I'm obviously better at calculus than the average person, but I'm not better at multiplication than the average person. Like, it's not, anyway. So yeah, that's my query.
There are so many things you do well here.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I love is that when you are pitching a contemporary story, no magical elements and it's in the present, you have to keep the emotional arcs moving. And so you need your internal conflict and your external conflict. And you do a beautiful job of keeping them always in a dynamic state. You could have pitched this in a pretty boring way. You could have pitched the same story as, here is this character. She is sad and shy. She has ups and downs with her friends and a crush. The end.
Yeah.
But you keep it moving. You show all of this different change in everything she's thinking about, which is really beautifully done. I think that's a really important way to, like, you raise these new questions of this could happen. You bring in these new possibilities without us ever being confused. It's lovely.
Right. And that goes back into your bio. There's just like a dichotomy everywhere. It's like that you ground so well. So you ground who Millie is, and then you pull us somewhere else. And then you ground her again and pull us out somewhere else. So I think Jessica's right. There's like movement, but I feel like that's what you do. Like, it's so funny that you do physics because it's almost like it's mapped out in a concrete way.
Oh, that's interesting. That's so interesting. And when I wrote my master's thesis in college, they were like, you wrote this so differently than most physics people. I think what they ultimately meant is this readable way that people can actually read. And so I'm like, is my writing some sort of hybrid of righty person and science person? Maybe. I don't know.
Or maybe every query needs a blend of blockers and jammers.
Oh, I love it.
Love that. Because that's the thing, because
you need that
restraint.
tension.
Yeah.
There's a restraint there too, right? And it's like, it's not just like, and this happens and this, it's really interesting.
It's like, she wants to do this. Oh, she's pulled back. She wants to do this. She's pulled back. Maybe
she's interested. She's will it happen? Yeah.
And I think like it took a lot of drafts for me to figure out how do I talk about a coming of age novel. And so there isn't necessarily a linear like series of big events, and so I had to kind of figure out how to talk about that. And I also, had to resist that sort of writer temptation to be like, every part of my book is important. And so I need to tell you about every single aspect of it. Like, I had to really kind of keep it short and choose what I thought were the main things I wanted to focus on, because I can't focus on every single thing. And that's not entirely dissimilar from the version that's going to end up on the back of the book cover. There is a little bit of mention of her parents' divorce and her brother going away to college, but it's still the focus is on the friendships and the romance. And it's really pretty similar to that. So.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you make those the unique part because you describe them in such a dynamic way. And I think your query should always focus on what is different about your book versus we can kind of imagine the other parts.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a really good point. Yeah, like what makes this book different than another book that might have some similar elements. Yeah.
So I definitely want to hear the first page.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah. Can I read you the version as it's going to be in my novel? Awesome. It's not too different. The first sentence never changed, but lots of other stuff did. But the first sentence stayed the same. Let me open it up. Okay. The next 5 minutes, we're going to determine everything about my future, or at least my future in roller derby, which was all that mattered. I wiped the sweat off my face with the hem of my t-shirt, took one more puff from my inhaler, and skated back onto the track. My muscles were warm from the previous hour of drills and skills, and my mind, well, it was as clear as it was going to be, all things considered. The only thing left, the dreaded 27 and 5. Get it, Mighty, Pumpkin shouted from the sidelines. She'd already done hers, skating 29 easy laps in 5 minutes, and was now sitting at the edge of the rink, unlacing her skates. I smiled at her weakly, glad for the encouragement, but at the same time wishing she wouldn't watch. The fewer witnesses, the better. I'd gotten the required 27 laps a few times in practice, but that was practice when the pressure was off, and it had always been close. Today it seemed less likely, given my nerves, my exhaustion from the rest of the assessment, and the effort it took to push away thoughts of my parents' announcement this morning. Stork rolled onto the track and lined up behind me. Great. Stork was tall and angular, like her namesake, and her legs devoured the track effortlessly. She'd blow past me immediately. Don't be nervous, Mighty. The white of Stork's mouthguard flashed as she smiled at me. I smiled back half-heartedly, not replying, vaguely offended. In what universe would I not be nervous? If I got even 26 and a half laps, it meant no real roller derby for me, just more time with the skater tots, practicing and hoping and dreaming. Everybody ready? The powerful voice of Coach Ann boomed through the rink. I braced my toe stops on the ground and bent my knees, ready to sprint at the whistle blast. I could do this. I didn't need to compete with Stork. Everyone was always talking about her speed, complimenting her, saying what potential she had as a jammer. Wouldn't they all be surprised if it were me, Millie Novak, aka Dynamite, who was the fastest? I could be more than just the goofy one, the comic relief. I could be an actual threat on the track. I could The whistle blew, startling me. Instead of a perfect sprint on my toe steps to accelerate, I stumbled, slipped, and flung my arms out for balance. Stork smacked into my flailing right arm as she blasted past me, and I tumbled onto my knees. Oh God, there went my chance.
Oh, I love it. You do so much in this page. You introduce things in this really graceful way. And again, it is the jammers and the blockers. What the character wants, why she can't have it. What the character wants, why she can't have it. She also wants this other thing, can't have it because of this. That's really cool, Liz.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think what you did as well is I really liked you guys the line about the parents, the announcement, really good because you're not like telling, like it's just enough. And we have a sense of who Millie is and what her stakes are within this group of people. Super clean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And clear.
Yeah.
And under control.
Yeah. And I also thought about, I mean, you all heard me describe the rules of roller derby earlier. I really consciously tried to start the story at a place where even if you know nothing about roller derby, you can understand I need to do X number of laps in this amount of time.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know the rules to
5
understand
minutes
the
seems
stakes.
fast.
It is fast. I hate the 27 and 5. So it has since been dropped as a requirement internationally. Individual leagues still do it sometimes. Our league doesn't, thank God. I think a lot of my despising of the 27 and 5 is also living in this novel. So
No, I love it. It's really great character building fast, and it's really easy to care about her and wonder what she's going to do next because the stakes are so clear. We can imagine all of these amazing things that could happen for her happily. We can imagine all of these amazingly bad and embarrassing things happening to her too. And now we just need to find out.
yeah, God, I feel like, oh, that's why it's good. Oh, cool. I didn't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I think perhaps you went about this doing all of your research, letting it kind of marinate in your brain, and then just seeing what comes out and if you like it, and not necessarily engineering every part of it, which is probably honestly how most people do this and probably the way to make it feel natural. You just gather as much information as you can, let it hang out in you for a while until suddenly you feel inspired. And that's probably why we say to read all those books in your genre and all that product copy of books in your genre. It's giving your brain what you need as an example. And you've given other people an example too.
Thank you. Yeah, I do read constantly. And honestly, in listening to your podcast and hearing other people's queries and hearing other people's first pages is also really helpful. And it just sort of sinks in.
Yeah, I think we probably learn a huge amount that we aren't even aware of all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's so much for your brain to take in with publishing that it's almost like you get to a point where you can take in like step A and then B and then C. But this like high level like submission package stuff, it's a whole different part of your brain and you have to have all the other things in place to get there. So it's like wine. Said that before, it's like, my
The
waitressing
terroir
days.
of your books.
Right, but it is. It's like you can't appreciate a really good wine unless you kind of understand the nuances. And I think it's like that.
I thought you were going to say it needs to age and you need to feed it good stuff and it's soil.
Well, I mean, that too. We should have a wine tour.
So, Liz, there's so much here that I think is so good for the other writers who are listening. If you can think of one other thing you learned throughout this process that might help the writers out there, what would it be?
So this is kind of vague. And at the same time, I think it also is sort of stuff that I've already said. But I think being sort of flexible in your mindset of like, listen to your gut if something doesn't feel right, and whether that's a suggestion for the story, including, for example, I've had suggestions from my agent and from my editor where I was like, that doesn't feel quite right. If something doesn't feel quite right, maybe look at why doesn't it feel right, and or why, in the case of like the writing, when I was like, well, I don't want to make this change, but why are you suggesting it? Maybe something isn't working. And I was able to find a solution that I thought was even better. And they were like, yes, that is better. Let's do that. Cool. And so it fixed the problem. Even if even if their solution didn't vibe with me, I was able to recognize what in my writing was getting somebody hung up on something. Also, if something doesn't feel like quite right interpersonally, if a relationship isn't right, or if you are querying something to death and nothing is happening, like don't cling too tightly. There's a lot of different paths to success, and you don't have to believe that one way is the right way.
I think when you're publishing and you're trying to get published, and you're going through this process, everyone's a jammer, right? Everyone is trying to get through when things are blocking you and things are like in your way. And it's just like knowing, like when you're a jammer, I'm sure you're just looking at the obstacles, but you're looking around the obstacles.
In
right?
fact, they often tell jammers, like, don't go to where the work is. Don't skate right into the blockers. Look for the paths around
Right.
them.
That's like the perfect metaphor, like to pull this together. Your entire story is based on breaks and seeing the spot to go and perseverance and grit and moving forward. I mean, it's so interesting. I feel like it is full circle.
Yeah, I think you mentioned like moving forward and perseverance, and we kind of talked about this before that like I'm good at just chipping away at stuff until it happens. And whether that's a novel or a business or whatever, I think one of the pieces of advice that a more experienced character gives Millie in the book, and when she's like, "Well, how did you get so good at it?" And she's like, "Well, I just kept going. Like I just continue to attend practice, and like sometimes all you have to do is just continue taking small steps because it adds up, like you said earlier, Julie." So I think the difference is taking small steps and working on writing as a whole versus being like, I will continue to query 200 agents with the same query and same story, even though it's not happening, like recognizing when you're grinding away at something that isn't working, not being afraid to take lateral steps and go somewhere different, take a different path. And to go back to the derby analogy.
Well, yeah, if the jammer just keeps going without turning left or right, they're just going to run into people.
Yeah,
They
and
have to pivot to make it work. On the
Yes.
other hand, the blockers aren't there just to screw with the jammer. They're there doing their job. So if you expect that there will be obstacles versus, oh, this person rejected me because they personally hate me and they're out to get me. No, they're just out there doing their job too. Everyone is seeing themselves as the jammer, whether to you they're a blocker or not.
I love it.
I'm in love with this metaphor. Can't stop.
I'm going to go see some roller derby.
Dude,
know, right?
Gotham is so good. Oh my God. I'm going to just look up the nearest roller derby with schedules for both of you. And like, I feel like if any listeners are like, hey, I want to go see derby, you just email me and I'll be like, let me find you the closest derby. It's, as we say, the one rule of roller derby is you never stop talking about roller derby. It's the opposite of Fight Club.
Oh my gosh.
So let's talk about your third job, Leaping Hound. Tell everyone about it and tell them what you do.
Yeah. So my husband and I had been teaching a short-term study abroad program on the history of science through a university for years. And people would always be like, oh, I want to go on one of your trips. It sounds really fun. And we decided finally, hey, let's open our own company so we can offer those trips and offer themes that aren't just academic, like vampires, like cakes.
Yeah.
So we launched our own travel company, Leaping Hound Travel, in February of 2020, which was an awesome time to start a travel company. So that was weird. And it obviously got off to a slow start, though, in a way, as we were talking about bad things and then finding good things. The pandemic, actively bad, very bad. I would never be one of those people who's like, but in a way it was good. It was bad. But we did end up with a lot more time to work on our business and kind of change things. And I think when things started opening up, we were really ready. And so we do sort of niche topics, small group tours, and then we also do individual trips planning, and we focus on Europe. We do a little bit of travel to Mexico and Japan as well, but Europe is our main thing just because we both have so much experience there and have spent so much time there. So yeah, we have together done 2 writing retreats now, and they have been amazing. And I still miss Mexico. Every day I think about it, I have the picture of the coatis on my phone. And so we have done these writing retreats with Manuscript Academy. I think I got the idea because I was at a little like travel webinar thing and they were like, think about other things you like and could you involve your travel business with them? And I was like, writing, Jessica and Julie. And then, yeah, we did our retreat in Ireland and we did our retreat in Mexico. And I think we can say officially, we talked about it, like our general plan is every other summer Europe, every other March Mexico. So,
well,
yeah.
One thing that was so incredible is that every single person was delightful.
How does that happen, right?
I don't know.
Incredible.
We're so lucky.
Yeah, seriously. I love everybody so much. It was such a great group. And like, I'm so excited by all of their writing too. Like,
too.
I keep thinking about it.
So each one had a different vibe, just for you guys listening out there. In Ireland, we did lots of teaching. It was very much more of a traditional conference in a lot of different ways. And in Mexico, we just hung out and wrote and just gave feedback, just constant feedback. We gave one-on-one critiques so that people could change their work, while they're there and get feedback from people around them. It was amazing.
Well, I loved being able to be like, excuse me, can I grab your computer? Thanks. And then I take their computer and I'm like, here's what I would do. See what I just did there? Do you like it? Yeah. Okay. Also, Julie is amazing at being like, actually start with this line halfway through the page. Yeah. So you did some of that, and watching everyone grow so much by the end was so cool.
Oh my God, I know so many people talked about the like transformation and like the realizations they came to and these big breakthroughs. It was so wonderful. Like, and for me, I didn't get to do much writing because it was work for me. And I also had a lot of individual clients traveling at the same time. So it was like, a lot of laptop time. But like, I think it's nice so that the writers have you two as this in-person resource, like you said, able to like look at things in real time and like read some stuff on Monday and then they change it and then you can look at it again on Thursday and be like, look what you did. This is great, And then they also have me and Adam there. So if they're like, something's wrong with the hotel room, or hey, we want to do an excursion, how do we do that? Or, making sure that they get from the airport to the hotel, like we're handling all those logistics and they know they have that backup there,
Yeah.
So
It's truly been one of my favorite things that we've done at the Manuscript Academy, because I just love I love the writers so much. I love you all out there so much, but just like being there with them,
It's fun to hang out.
Yeah.
It's great to get to know them and to know their work really intimately.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, you're stressed out about this. Let's go get a margarita and look at the waves and chat.
Yeah. Yeah. So can we talk a little about 2025?
Let's do it.
Please tell us about the cream cake.
So yes. Yeah. And then it can be, let's go get another slice of cream cake. So we're going to Lake Bled, Slovenia. And so my travel company, we're doing the writing retreat, and then we're doing a week of just wonderful vacation stuff because there's so much beautiful stuff in the area. And also because we're aware some people may not want to go all the way to Slovenia for 6 nights and then head right home. So this way people can do both. And then we're also doing an art retreat with an art teacher after that. And so that way artists and writers could both be on that middle tour. And I mean, I get to be in Slovenia for almost a month. It's going to be great. But it's at Lake Bled, and it doesn't have the name recognition of, Paris or Florence or something, but like, look up pictures of Lake Bled, listeners. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. The first time we went there, I could not handle how beautiful it is. And we're staying at this incredible hotel where we're all going to have hotel rooms with balconies facing the lake with this incredible lake view where we can just, you can sit on your balcony with a glass of wine and write and look at the water. In Lake Bled, there is a famous cream cake, and they make it all over the town, but it was invented at Hotel Park by their chef in the 1950s. And so that is where we're staying. And so it's like the cream cake. And there's actually a station on the hotel TV that just goes through the history of the cream cake on a loop. And it's incredible. And they have a restaurant attached that's open air right on the lake that will have events there and drinks and cake on our welcoming night. And you can take these long paths around the lake that I think are so perfect to like walk and think. And there's also a lot of little cafes and little places along the lake. So like you want to take your laptop and take a long walk and then stop and write, or walk and talk, kind of like we did on the beach, or sitting on the beach. You can do the same thing on the lake. And it is the bluest water I've ever seen. My mother was like, they don't dye it, right? And she knew the answer was no, but it's like, it's hard to believe when you look at it. Like it's incredible. It's in the mountains, and it's also shockingly easy to get to. Like if you're flying out of a major airport, you'll probably have like one layover in maybe like Frankfurt or Munich or London. And then it's a short flight to Ljubljana. And then we're going to have private drivers pick everybody up, and then we'll be waiting for them at the hotel. It's like 45-minute drive. And it's just this kind of quiet spot. I feel like fantasy novel writers will love it because it has that fantasy, like Lord of the Rings sort of majestic feel to it. But I don't write fantasy, and I still am just like so inspired every time I go there. It's so epic feeling.
Is it a castle, a church on an island that everyone can see?
Both, yes. So there is a castle that you can either take a taxi to or you can hike up to. It's not that bad of a hike. I've done it, and I'm not a hiking type person. And it's 1,000 years old. It's not a super big castle, but there's like a little history museum in there that if you're into the macabre at all, they do have a skeleton from someone from like 1,000 years ago you can look at. If anyone's read the novel The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova from about 20 years ago, there's a pivotal scene scene that takes place at that castle in Lake Bled. I'm a big vampire person, so I love that book and I love that. And you can sit in the courtyard at the castle and look at the view over the lake. The castle lights up at night. And then there's Bled Island. The only two things on the island are a church and a bakery. And the bakery is incredible. And in the church, there is a bell that supposedly, if you ring it, you will have a wish granted. And you can ring this bell in the middle of the church.
Perfect for the writers.
It's
Yeah.
so magical. And there's no boats with motors. You can row out there, you can rent a kayak, or they have these wooden boats that you can pay to get taken across the lake on. They're called pletnas. It's a really, like, we're calling the whole 3-week chunk Enchanted Summer because it really does feel enchanted there. And we're so excited. So yeah, come hang out with us. Come right there. And what I like about it in the same way as our Mexico retreat is it really has this feeling of like stepping away from day-to-day life of thinking about, I got to pay bills, I got to clean this up or whatever. And it gets you into this mindset of just creating and, being kind of wrapped up in this community.
Yeah, and it is. I think it is too. It's the surroundings, but it's really the conversations you have at dinner. It's the walk to breakfast, because having time and space with people that are like you is really hard. Even if you have a writer's group, it's like you're still kind of coming off a work day or coming off. But this is just, it's very focused, relaxing, but also engaging in your writing.
Yeah, every time I travel or step away for something like this, and it's like I'm seeing things with fresh eyes, and I'm immediately just getting so many more ideas just because I feel like I'm having new thoughts, and like, I don't know exactly what's happening in the synapses in my brain, but by going to a different location, I'm able to produce new ideas, and especially in collaboration with other people. And especially you two are so amazing working with people. I think it's so valuable. So,
Well, I think it's kind of one of those things that like you can work in a publishing office and everything is so much to take in, right? There's so much to learn. There's so much to know. There's so much to memorize. And one day someone asks you a question and you know the answer because you've been absorbing it. And I think being around writers, you absorb some of that feeling, that knowing, that inspiration too.
yeah.
Didn't you say there are robot cats?
Oh yeah, the robot cats. They're the waiters. Yeah, the breakfast is incredible. It's huge. There's so many good things to eat, including gluten-free stuff, including vegan stuff. Like, we always pay a lot of attention to that. I just remember getting these really incredible pancakes and taking 2 and the chef being like, no, you need 3, and handing me a third one. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll have 3. But they have, these robot cat waiters that glide around that you can either put your dishes on, or sometimes like at their cafe, they also have them there. And like, if the human waiter has like a lot of plates to carry, the cat will carry all of the plates and the waiter will just walk to the table with the cat. It's so bizarre and charming. We were like, what are we saying? Are these cat waiter robots? Yeah, they glide. They don't walk around like cats. They're gliding robots with cat faces.
I like that. Well, I had no idea where Slovenia was, and I looked it up. And now that I'm like, okay, to me, it looks like pictures I've seen of Lake Como. And it is just across the water from Italy.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, it's near Italy and it's near Austria. So like,
and Croatia.
And Croatia. So I feel like all 3 of those places, if you're interested in like, oh, I want to go see somewhere else while I'm there, like, it's close to Italy. And I think you're totally right about Lake Como. It has that sort of blue water in the mountains look. It's a lot less expensive than Lake Como, though, I will say that. But yeah, it's near Italy, it's near Croatia, it's near Austria, kind of in that area. So,
well, Liz, I'm so excited that you found this for us. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun to see people in person for the first time. And yeah, so we're so happy for you. We're so happy for your book. Tell us when your book comes out. Tell us where people can find you online, all that good stuff. Yeah, and where they can ask you about roller derby.
Absolutely. So Mighty Millie Novak comes out on August 20th, 2024. I said that long for some reason. And on my website, which is Elizabeth-Holden.com, I have a section for books there, so you can read more about Mighty Millie Novak. There's a lot of places to pre-order. There's information about it. And then I also have a bio and all that. And then there's also links to my travel page, which is leapinghound.com. When we were coming up with names for the business, everything we thought of travel related had been taken. And we said that, and we have a greyhound. And so it's named for the greyhound. And so leapinghound.com is where we have information about the writing retreat, and you can navigate to it there. I think it's leapinghound.com/enchanted25, but you'll also easily find your way there. And when you're on my website, I also have my email on there, so you can contact me by email. I'll say it here as well, but it's fine if you don't remember it. It's elizabeth.holden.author@gmail.com. So please write to me about roller derby or greyhounds or anything else you'd like to. Oh, and I'll also just put a plug on, if I can say one other thing. My sister and I have a podcast called We Want to Believe. It is two scientists rewatching the X-Files as adults, because we were always X-Files fans. So we're doing a rewatch.
Aww.
And it's getting, I think, progressively absurd as we consider different questions brought up in the episodes. It's really a fun way to connect with my sister and have time to talk about science and our favorite TV show. So, yeah.
Well, Liz, I am just so happy for you on all of these fronts. New book, lots of amazing stuff. About to go to Europe for 3 months. Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Please keep in touch. Let us know
Of
about,
course.
the emails you get, the folks who ask you about the cat waiters, the people who go to roller derby and report back.
If you email me, I'll send you a picture of the cat waiters.
I love that. Well, Liz, thank you so much. And for those of you who would like to check out our upcoming clip on why Liz's query and page are so good line by line, head to our YouTube channel, which is brand new. It is youtube.com/@Manuscript Academy, spelled out. And yeah, we're learning video. It's pretty exciting.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out.
Thank you so much, Liz.
We are so glad that you joined us. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. Just head on over to the iTunes store and let us know what you think. It not only helps us make this podcast be the best it can be, but it also affects our ratings within the iTunes platform.
We'd love to hear from you. If you're feeling brave and want to submit your page for our First Pages podcast, you can send it to academy@manuscriptwishlist.com with First Pages podcast in the subject line. We'd also just love to hear from you.
And if you'd like to learn more about the Manuscript Academy and everything we have to offer,